in the quiet green village of Kamarpukur, where life moved slowly and faith filled every corner, a divine story was about to begin. It was the year 1836. In a small, simple home lived a poor but deeply spiritual couple, Khudiram Chattopadhyay and Chandramani Devi. They were not rich in money, but they were rich in devotion. Khudiram was known for his honesty and strong faith in God, and Chandramani Devi was known for her pure heart and motherly love. But something unusual happened before the child was even born. One day, Khudiram had a powerful dream. He saw Lord Vishnu, who told him that a divine soul would soon take birth in his family. Around the same time, Chandramani Devi also experienced something extraordinary. She felt a divine light entering her body, a moment so powerful that she believed God himself had touched her life. And then, the day finally arrived. On February 18th, 1836, a child was born. The villagers didn't know it yet, but this child would one day become Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. They named him Gadadhar. From the very beginning, Gadadhar was not like other children. He had a calm face, deep, expressive eyes, and a strange sense of peace around him. While other children ran after games and fun, Gadadhar was drawn towards temples, prayers, and stories of God. He loved listening to the epics, stories of Rama, Krishna, and goddess Kali. He would often act out these stories, sometimes becoming Lord Krishna, sometimes a devotee lost in love for God. And while acting, he didn't just pretend, he felt it deeply. One day, something incredible happened. Gadadhar was walking through the fields. The sky was dark with rain clouds, and suddenly, a flock of white cranes flew across the sky. The contrast was so beautiful, so pure, that Gadadhar stood still. And then, he lost awareness of the world. He fell into a deep spiritual state, a moment of divine absorption. When the villagers saw this, they were shocked. Some were confused, some were worried, but his parents, they understood. They knew this child was not ordinary. Time passed, and the young boy from Kamarpukur, Gadadhar, began to grow. But as he grew older, one thing became clearer with each passing day. He did not belong to the ordinary world. His family wanted him to study, to learn reading, writing, and build a normal life. But Gadadhar had no interest in worldly education. He would often say, "What is the use of learning that does not help us realize God?" For him, God was the only truth worth seeking. His love for the divine kept growing. He spent hours in prayer, singing devotional songs, and meditating in silence. Sometimes, he would become so absorbed that he would forget the world around him. Years later, fate took a new turn. Gadadhar moved to the great city of Kolkata, a place very different from his peaceful village. There, his elder brother had taken up work as a priest. And soon, Gadadhar too began assisting him. Not long after, a moment arrived that would change his life forever. He was appointed as a priest at the famous Dakshineswar Kali Temple, a place dedicated to goddess Kali. But for Gadadhar, Kali was not just a statue of stone. She was his living mother. He would talk to her, laugh with her, cry before her, like a child calling out to his mother. As days passed, his devotion turned into deep longing. He didn't just want to worship God, he wanted to see God. He would pray with tears in his eyes. "Mother, are you real? Why don't you speak to me?" His longing became so intense that it felt unbearable. One day, in deep pain, he felt he could not live without seeing the Divine Mother. In that moment of extreme emotion, he decided to end his life. But just then, something extraordinary happened. The temple, the walls, everything around him seemed to disappear, and in front of him, he saw a vast ocean of divine light. And from that light appeared Goddess Kali, alive, radiant, full of love. He fell into deep samadhi, a state beyond words, beyond this world. When he returned to normal consciousness, he was no longer the same person. Soft tone, he had seen God. From that day, there was no doubt, no fear, only divine bliss. The young boy from Kamarpukur had now become a true seeker of truth. This was the beginning of the spiritual journey of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. In the next part, we will see how he explored different religions and guided great souls like Swami Vivekananda.
The days at Dakshineswar Kali Temple passed, but for him, time no longer mattered. For others, it was just a temple. But for Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, it was a living world filled with the presence of the Divine Mother. He would stand before the idol of Kali, but in his eyes, it was not stone. It was his mother. He spoke to her, as a child speaks to his mother. He laughed, he cried, he complained, and sometimes he would even refuse to perform rituals if he felt she was not responding. "Are you just a statue, or are you truly alive?" he would ask with tears in his eyes. His devotion was not ritualistic. It was raw, pure, and intense. There were days when he would decorate the mother with flowers, feed her with his own hands, and then sit silently, waiting, as if expecting her to speak back. And for him, she did. People around him began to notice something unusual. Sometimes, during worship, he would suddenly lose awareness of the world, his body becoming still, his eyes filled with divine ecstasy. He would enter samadhi, a state beyond ordinary understanding. Some thought he had gone mad. Others felt something divine. Word slowly began to spread. In Dakshineswar, there is a priest who sees God. People from different places, different backgrounds, began to visit him. Some came with curiosity, some came with doubt, and some came with deep spiritual hunger. Among them, one day, came a young man, sharp, intelligent, full of questions. His name was Swami Vivekananda, though at that time he was known as Narendra. He did not believe easily. He had one question, a question he asked many spiritual leaders. "Have you seen God?" When Narendra asked this question to Ramakrishna, there was no hesitation, no philosophy, no long explanation, just a simple answer. "Yes, I have seen God. I see him as clearly as I see you, even more clearly." Those words shook Narendra. His doubt began to melt. Ramakrishna did not ask him to believe blindly. He encouraged him to experience, to test, to feel, to realize. For the first time, Swami Vivekananda met someone who didn't just talk about God, but experienced God. Their connection grew deeper with time. Ramakrishna saw something extraordinary in Narendra, and Narendra slowly began to realize that this simple priest was not ordinary. But Narendra was not alone. Many others gathered around Ramakrishna, young seekers, householders, devotees, each one drawn by his simplicity, his love, and his direct experience of the divine. He taught them something simple, yet powerful, that all religions lead to the same truth. He did not ask them to leave their religion. He did not ask them to follow complicated rituals. Instead, he gave a simple truth. All paths lead to the same goal. To prove this, he did something rare. He practiced different religions, not just in theory, but in real experience. He followed the path of devotion, then the path of knowledge. He even practiced Islam and Christianity, and each time, he reached the same truth. That God is one, but people call him by different names. His teachings were simple, yet powerful. Love God with all your heart. See God in every living being. Ego is the only barrier between you and the divine. But it was not just his words. It was his life. People witnessed moments they could not explain. Sometimes, he would know the thoughts of others without being told. Sometimes, his touch alone would bring deep peace to a restless mind. And sometimes, just sitting near him would make people feel a presence beyond this world. Yet, he never claimed to be a miracle worker. He would smile and say, "All power belongs to the Mother." To him, everything was Kali. Every face, every being, every moment was a reflection of the divine. And slowly, the small temple of Dakshineswar became a place of transformation. Lives changed, doubts disappeared, and seekers found answers, not in books, but in experience. And at the center of it all was a simple man, with the heart of a child, and the soul of a realized master, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, and his story was still unfolding. To prove this, he walked different paths himself. He prayed like a Hindu. He lived like a Muslim. He meditated on Christ. And each time, he reached the same realization, that God is one, but known by many names. His life became his message. Not books, not theories, but living truth. Sometimes, he would laugh like a child. Sometimes, he would go into deep silence. And sometimes, he would look at someone and understand their heart without a single word. People began to feel that being near him was like being near something sacred. Yet, he remained simple. No pride, no ego, only love. For him, every person was a form of the divine. Every face was the face of the Mother. And in that small temple of Dakshineswar Kali Temple, a silent transformation was taking place. Lives were changing, hearts were opening, and the search for God was no longer distant, because in the presence of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, God felt real. As time passed, the body of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa began to weaken, but his spirit remained untouched. The same man who once danced in divine ecstasy, who laughed like a child, who spoke of God as a living reality, now began to experience physical suffering. At first, it was just a small pain in his throat, something that seemed ordinary, but slowly, it grew worse. Speaking became difficult, eating became painful, and the doctors soon realized it was a serious illness. He was diagnosed with throat cancer. Yet, something about him never changed. There was no fear in his eyes, no complaint on his lips, only acceptance. His disciples were deeply worried. Among them was Swami Vivekananda, who loved his master deeply. Seeing him suffer was unbearable. They moved him from Dakshineswar to a quiet place in Kolkata, where he could receive better care. But even there, he did not stop teaching. His body was weak, but his words were still full of power. Sometimes, he could barely speak. Yet, when he spoke of God, his voice carried a strength beyond the body. Disciples gathered around him, day and night, not just to serve him, but to be near him, to absorb his presence, to learn, even in silence. One day, seeing his disciples worried, he gently said, "Why do you worry so much about this body? This body is temporary, but the truth I have shared will live forever." Even in pain, he guided them. He told them to see God in every living being, to serve humanity as worship. And most importantly, he prepared them for a future without him. He looked at Swami Vivekananda and entrusted him with a great mission, to spread these teachings, to awaken the world. Narendra, who once doubted everything, now stood transformed, ready to carry forward his master's vision. Days passed, and the time slowly approached. On a quiet day, in 1886, surrounded by his disciples, the atmosphere was silent, heavy, yet peaceful. Ramakrishna lay still, his breath becoming softer, his face calm, filled with a gentle smile. And then, like a wave returning to the ocean, he left the body. There was no struggle, no fear, only silence. The disciples were heartbroken, but deep within, they knew this was not an end, because what he gave them could never be lost. From a small village in Kamarpukur to the hearts of millions, his life became a light, a path, a truth, and through the work of Swami Vivekananda, that light spread across the world. Today, his teachings still live, in every prayer, in every act of love, in every soul seeking God, because some lives do not end, they become eternal. And that is the story of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa.